Johnson, and this is focused on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Country, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talking about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Friday Night Debate on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Friday Night Debate, we're going to be discussing some trending issues in Liberia, including the House Speaker Brouhaha that doesn't seem to go away. Right now, it looks like we have two speakers. I don't know when President Brouhaha appear for a State of the Union. He's going to be looking left and right and say, Mr. Speakers. We'll find out what's going on there. The case has gone to the Supreme Court. Any update, we're going to debate that. Also, there's report that the port of Greenville, the port of Buchanan, the port of Harper, they're going to have autonomy. What does that mean? Does it mean privatization or autonomy? We want to look at that and debate the pros and cons about decentralizing or the so-called decentralization of the Freeports in Liberia. The MCC Scorecard, that's the Millennium Challenge, the scorecard is out. How did we do, and what does that mean? We're going to be debating all that tonight, right here on Friday Night Debate. Let me welcome the host of the Business and Economic Forum here called FOL Marketplace, Mr. Gabriel Tabito M. Carter. Welcome, Mr. Carter.
Dennis, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Let me also welcome Mr. J. Victor Nambwe. That's James Victor Nambwe. He is FOL Political Analyst. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Dennis, and should I say Dennis and Dennis? I've seen Dennis's. It is good to be here, and hello to everyone. Let's get it on.
Thank you. Let me welcome joining us from Canada, Mr. A. Boakai Dukle. He's a regular panelist here. He's also an Islamic scholar trained in Egypt, the cradle of civilization. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Let me also welcome FOL Senior Political Analyst and a product of Waplo Institute from Kilipo, Kanweken, Mr. Mohammed Sharif. Welcome, sir.
Dennis, thank you. It's great to be here.
Last but not the least is Pastor S.T. Salif. He's the senior pastor of One Family Christian Center. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jai. It's good to be here. I'm looking forward to a great show tonight, as always.
And Mr. Salif, also a development coach. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. If it is Friday, it's Friday Night Debate. And the issues we're going to be debating, let's start with what's going on. I know we have talked about this thing at length, right? Today, I want us to sit back and really see what's going on. The 73 ladies and gentlemen in the House were elected by their people. There was no election for speaker, right? Speakership, the group came together and say, you be our speaker for this length of time. And we can change you anytime we want based on cost. And the cost can be something like, we don't like the way you dress. Why is this speaker business now is like all this hauling and pulling? Is it because of standing out for integrity, for the right thing to be done? Is it money? Is it the rule of law? What is it? Let me start with my senior political analyst, Mr. Mohammed Sharif. Mr. Sharif,
Yeah.
why is the whole country involved with this whole speaker thing? Is it that important?
It is important. It's an important position for sure. What is going on is a combination of different things. You have money, power, and greed. So money, power, and greed. When you combine those things, it makes that position very unstable. And so it's easy also constitutionally to get rid of the speaker. So now what you have is a lot of political interference from the executive. This didn't start with the Brouhaha administration. Once that was introduced during the Ellen Johnson years, you see a continuation of it, of attempts to remove speakers, and all these attempts have been successful. This one is about to be successful. It's not yet, they've not yet landed, but they are on track. So the pro-democracy element, constitutionalists like us who believe in the Constitution, pinning our hopes on the Supreme Court to do the right thing. Because what is going on right now is an orchestration and a coup d'etat that is very detrimental to the stability of Liberia. I mean, we're the laughing stock now of the rest of West Africa, of the rest of the continent, perhaps. You don't see this in Sierra Leone. You don't see this in Cote d'Ivoire. I mean, because it's a lot easier. And Dennis, you have to remember that, in the beginning, the Unity Party was pushing, Richard Cohen. So they never gave up. They never gave up that fight. And so, even though it may have something to do with the speaker's intent, Speaker Kofa's intent to audit the legislature, but this was a fight that never ended. And it's interesting that the week that Joseph Brouhaha took the speaker to meet the Pope is when the proverbial knife was put in his backside, and what a Christian way to get rid of somebody, right? We always talk about, every time I talk to my Liberian friends, they quickly remind me that Liberia is a Christian principle. We're religious. Every time you stop to talk to somebody, they'll open up the Bible or the Quran. We're so religious, but here we are doing all these things that are detrimental, that are incongruent with religious values. Theft, robbery. These guys are robbing the Liberian nation state. It's all this is about. It's not about the people. So Speaker Kofa will go tomorrow, maybe, day after tomorrow, maybe. But what happens to the average Liberians? This is not even talked about.
Thank you. Pastor Salif, assuming this happens and Mr. Teresa, the majority look like they're going to be successful, what is the far-reaching implications? The precedent here, what happens going forward when it comes to this whole speakership? If the group now succeeds in removing the speaker under these circumstances. On mute, please. On mute, Pastor Salif.
Thank you for bringing it on, Mr. Ja. I mean, it's a good thing that is the part of the rule of law. They can seek recourse at the Supreme Court, but there's not much the Supreme Court can do because of the separation of power. The legislative branch of government is the first branch of government. They got their own rules. The House has its own rules that govern their operations, apart from the other precedents set forth in the Constitution. So it's not much that if that's what the majority in the House want. I think the Supreme Court might be able to mitigate to calm the tension, but definitely what they want to do, that's what they will get. The precedent has already been set. The precedent has not been set from this guy. The precedent was already set with Alex Tata, with Edwin Snow. So normally things happen. The first thing we'll look back in. I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, in law, you want to know whether there was a precedent. And there was a precedent with Tyler, with Snow. So it's already been set. The way I look at the thing is the House of Representatives, I don't see anything unconstitutional they're doing. That's why the Constitution gave them, is the right they give them. If the House decide, hey, we don't want our speaker, yeah, they can come up with any frivolous cause, come up with a resolution, and if they can get a 2/3 of the majority of the vote, 2/3 of the vote to remove it. It's not only the speaker, because the reason the argument is so confusing is because people are not going in depth to discuss the full thing. It's not the 2/3 is not only to remove speaker. Article 49 talks about to remove the speaker, to remove the deputy speaker, and other elected officials within the legislature. So you need that 2/3. But to do business, you only need a simple majority. So that is the Constitution, and they got their own house rules. So that's not much the Supreme Court would do. And they're not setting a new precedent. The precedent has already been set during the time of Tyler, during the time of Snow. So I think Liberians, we just got to be mature and look at this thing. What the thing that really brought out that made the whole thing messy was the fact that they did not have the 2/3 and they rushed into trying to remove the speaker. That's what made the whole thing messy. They should have waited to make sure they had the 2/3 and remove the speaker. And even the money they had to share, I think they were just immature. They should have said, hey, let's get the job done. It was not a good thing. I don't subscribe to it. I don't support it, but that's what it did. So what they would have done was, let's get the job done first, and then people get paid. But instead, they started paying people first, and people signing. Somebody blew the whistle. That's how you and me and all of us got to know. So it's something clandestine they were doing, but because one person broke.
What you make of moving out where they used to meet, right? They move out of that chamber, went somewhere else, and say, hey, this is where we are now. Because, and the reason they're doing it, because the Constitution does not say if you meet, you got to meet in this room. So they are taking advantage of that loophole. How you look at that?
Yeah, so the Constitution did not specifically say they can meet outside of the chamber. The way I look at it is that's the blunder that they have made. If they want to remove the speaker, if you feel you got a 2/3, go to the chamber. I mean, Kofa will come with his own 30 people or so that he got, and you can go there, you put it to vote, you'll get it 49 people. So go to the chamber and do it. That's where the speaker is elected. That's where the speaker is removed. So like I said, there were a series of missteps that they made, and they don't want to.
What? Because of this misstep, and still if they succeed, what are the far-reaching implications? It means anytime we disagree, we can just go to Bonja and get rid of whoever we don't want.
And that is where the Supreme Court will come to set some standards that, okay, what you've done, we cannot undo it, but going forward, it has to be done in the chamber, because that's where the speaker should be elected. That's where the speaker should be removed, even though they got the right to meet anywhere. But my question is, why you want to remove the speaker if you got a vote? Go to the chamber and do it. Let the Liberian people see what you're doing, So that's the problem I got. But the process, the methodology is wrong. But the intention is not wrong. The Constitution said they can remove the speaker if they want. They elected him. They can remove him if they don't want him. But the process was messy.
Thank you. And Mr. Ducle, talking about, so if they succeed through a messy process, What other precedent does that say? I was looking at the Constitution again, and the Constitution did not mention that they should meet in room XYZ. So and I'm not a lawyer, but I talk to lawyers. The two sides, people are talking about the intent and also how things are changing. Do you really believe the intent of the framework is that, okay, people can just go and meet anywhere, as long as you get some number, you can say, okay, today we'll go to meet to MC, or today we're going to go to the park to remove do this. Going forward, how will things look like?
Well, you have to take into account some of these interpretation or the reading of the Constitution, like Brother Salif has said tonight, and even in previous program here. That is just one reading of the text, and I don't think that's the only reading there is to that particular text.
Which text?
Because you can also interpret it that text is only referencing normal circumstances, normal function of the house, not when a dispute arises. In other words, what I'm saying here is it puts us in a gray area where some of these readings of the text of the Constitution have not been tested, and that also include even places that they meet, whether in a confine of the law, whether that's acceptable or not. Because I remember when the saga of Edwin Snow happened, the breakaway faction held their meeting at the Unity Conference Center, and there were people saying that was unconstitutional, that was illegal, etc. So, with that being said, I think we are approaching the pinnacle of this saga here, because the fact that you have now got two speakers is telling us now that this is going to be resolved one way or another. And this doesn't really look well for Speaker Kofa, because even though the required 49 has not been acquired, but I think they are pretty much on their way there. But the bad precedent has already been set, as the two previous speakers alluded to. Alex Taylor and Edwin Snow, when they had their situations, it's the same thing where you have disgruntled members of the House just come together. You know what? Let's get rid of this guy. It's all about power play, politics, and the greed that is associated with all of what they are doing. And as someone said earlier, the Liberian people do not factor in the equation of any of this. And so in the end, we are going to end up with somebody new who is going to want to hang on to power, having acquired through whatever means. So really, the way the Supreme Court is going to intervene in this, I don't see any resolution even from the Supreme Court, because even though this is supposed to be the last arbiter of our laws, but the way we've been accustomed to doing things in the House of Representatives, it's going to be extremely difficult to see a resolution in which Speaker Kofa is going to retain his position. We know for sure that's not going to happen. And so we just have to accept, as we have no recourse as people, because this has got nothing to do with our interests or the interest of the Liberian people who send them to their house. And it speaks to one thing that I consider paramount in all of this, is how our system in the house is weak, and it needs some revamping where rules can be clear up to everyone, so that whoever is there know what he or she is up against, instead of leaving some of these things to be, as we refer to them, gray areas and haven't been tested, etc., etc. That only speaks to how weak the system they have in place how the system is. It's weak.
Mm.
So really,
But
there's nothing good that is.
do you
Pardon me?
think that is not intentional?
Pardon me?
Is it not intentional? Like for instance, we don't have a website where you can go and view these things. It took me like a week to really get the rules for the house. So,
Yeah.
so isn't it
I mean,
intentional that
look.
you make these things gray and make them, you don't have any place. If you want to check the voting record of a senator or representative, where do you go? If you want to see the bills that have been passed or what they are talking about, where do you go? If you want to even look at their salaries, where do you go?
Yeah, the thing is, that question has to do with a bigger issue than is bigger than the House of Representatives. This has got to do with the Republic of Liberia, and how we haven't arrived in the 21st century yet. We are still at the tail end of the tail end of the 20th century. We haven't gotten to the 21st century yet. Until then, when we get to the 21st century, that's when you wouldn't need to ask any questions. Just going online. That's when you wouldn't need the Ministry of Information and Cultural Affairs. That's when you wouldn't need all these, the answer to all these questions you are asking. These are supposed to be something that every Liberian can access it from anywhere in the world. You just go to your computer, you type in whatever it is, and it pops up. But we are not in the 21st century yet. That's got very little to do with the House of Representatives. I wouldn't say that it's intentional. That's just the situation of Liberia, where we are very limited when it comes to technology, and all these things are something that we need to catch up with. But I wouldn't say it's intentional. It's just the lack of facility available, and because those things are not something that they prioritize, those things are not things that they care about. So in the end, people like me and you who are eager to get to know will be the ones to suffer and go out of our way to get this information. But I mean, I wouldn't say it's intentional.
Thank you. Gabriel, if you take a step back and look at what is going on, who or what you think is responsible?
Dennis, I have a different take on this whole debacle. And the take that I have on it is that what is happening right now is inevitable. It happens in every democracy. The Constitution is a living, breathing document. Our democracy is since the post-war is a very young democracy. It has to be tested. It will be tested. And by the evolution of these things, by getting
Gabriel, you say our
these
democracy
things,
is
these
young?
kind of
Since 1847, we've been voting.
no, I said post-war,
Okay.
right? After the war, there is, I think we revised the Constitution. So that document is a living, breathing document. The Constitution is the democracy is that we're building after the war. It is young, like as Dr. Dukele pointed out. We're still in the tail end of the 19. We're not in the 21st century yet, right? So the take that I have is that these things need to happen. That way we can revise the Constitution, we can amend, we can improve upon it. And this is why I think Mr. Salif talked about. This is where the Supreme Court needs to come in, right? Regardless of their limitation, to set certain boundaries in terms of, so we don't put this thing out of hand, it doesn't get out of control. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that these things will happen. This is not the first, this won't be the last, but the fact that these are happening, they're inevitable, will allow us to improve our democracy, the laws that govern them. Perfect example, you alluded to the loophole that allowed them to step out of the chamber to carry out what that act, right? One improvement could be to amend that constitution that every incident that happened like that needs to happen within the chamber, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that regardless of who comes in or who doesn't come in, these things need to happen. That way, this is how our democracy is tested. This is how it will be improved. If these things do not happen, we will not have an improving democracy. Our constitution will not be revised. Some of these things will not be tested. It is necessary for it to happen. I'm not saying it's right. No, it's not right. But everywhere there is loophole, people will exploit them. And whenever they exploit them, those loopholes are exposed. What do you do in a thriving democracy? You improve them, you revise them to make sure it's better. And that once you make it better, there will always be somebody who will come again and find a loopholes around that. The only tragedy that I have about this incident, and I think this is where the Supreme Court needs to come in, if what is being alleged is true about money being involved, people being paid to carry out those acts, then they need to put a stop to that whole incident and to carry out an intentional investigation, and then take, press charges or whatever they have to do to those individuals who are involved, right? And again, it will lead us right back to the same incident. How do we amend the Constitution so these things do not happen from a clandestine standpoint? And how do we amend the Constitution so we can improve our democracy? These things will happen. The thing here is that we just have to be able to learn from it, grow from it, and improve our Constitution and our democracy from it. This is what a country does. Evolutions happen by being tested. Constitution evolve by being tested. These things happen by people being tested and our democracy being tested. That's my take on that.
Gabriel, if improving our constitution or testing it and doing that, if what you are saying, if that's something we can go by, then we say this is not new, right? Because it happened, 2026? I mean, 2005, 2006. So this has been almost like 20 years. So if you say this is helping us to improve the constitution, to improve our democracy, are we going forward or are we going backwards? Because that means we should have built on it, but it happened to Snow, it happened to Tyler, now it's happening to Kofa. So
exactly, and that's the point here, right? It happened to those people.
So where's the improvement?
Did we do anything to improve that? Did we do any amendment to those constitution to make sure these things never happen? Exactly, I think Mr. Sherry's agree with me. We never did. So the fact that this is happening, we need to step back now and say, okay, this happened to Snow, this happened to the previous other speakers. How do we make sure we revise this constitution, right? The loophole that these guys are exploiting, how do we revise it so it doesn't happen again? That's one point. The other point is, I keep saying this, please do, I hope they're listening, investigate the allegation of money being involved. This is how you get money involved in politics. If we allow that to happen without any investigation and it carries on, this is how people with money in our government, in our country.
The LACC took that, and since then we have not heard anything about it.
That's what I'm saying. And we sat on these things from the previous incidences, and these things happen. We don't investigate. We don't.
So in your mind, what is responsible? So first of all, you say because we didn't amend the Constitution, even though I disagree with you, I don't think changing that clause in the Constitution is clear. So in your view, the Constitution, and also because we are not investigating, that's why this is happening.
There's 2 points that I'm trying to make here, and I think you're maybe overthinking it. One, I would say this categorically. I'm not saying this is the right way.
I can use a.
I'm not saying this is the right way to amend our constitution to improve our democracy. However, there will always be that group of people or that one child that will test you, that will allow you to rethink your parenting style, your parenting skills. For us as a country, those are the problem children that we have in our democracy. However, what that is going to do to us as a country, it is going to allow us now to revise our constitution. As I keep saying this, maybe you're forgetting. This is a living and breathing document. The more it gets tested, the more you revive, somebody will always find a loophole around it. It is continuous. And for us, the best way to do that is to be able to learn from our mistake. The mistake we keep making is, you guys keep alluding to this. It keep happening, but nothing happens to the Constitution. Nobody's held accountable, and nothing gets done. But what I'm saying is that we have to learn from this, and it's going to happen. This is how we're tested as a country. This is how we're resolved, and this is how things get improved from the negative standpoint.
Thank you.
I yield. Yeah.
Let me go to Mr. J. Victor Nabe. I know you listen to a lot of the back and forth. Who or what you think is responsible? What's causing this? This is just a normal politics, and it's okay.
Well, I think the removal of a Speaker of the House. It is a normal ebb and flow of democratic, politics. It shouldn't be a big deal. But I think what concerns a lot of us is the manner in which it is being effectuated in Liberia.
And why is that so?
It is so because, one, the law says if you have the numbers, you bring your charges on the floor, you debate among your peers, and you remove the speaker. Period. The guys who are trying to remove Fonadi Kofa do not have the numbers. They never had the numbers. They don't have the numbers. They waited until he went to the Vatican and they tried to seize power in his absence, hoping that they will come on the floor and rally the rest of the people to join them and remove him. That didn't happen. And now, because it is not happening, they are holed up in a... And why are they in a hotel anyway? Can somebody explain to me why they don't go home? I mean, they've been in a hotel since October 17th. Why do they need to be in a hotel when Fonati and his people are going home and sleeping in their beds? Doesn't that say something to you? Who is afraid that when these people leave the hotel, they will leave the reservation and cross over? Somebody must be concerned. But the point is this. What the guys are doing is they're using extrajudicial means to remove the speaker, and that's untenable. This is the epitome of a descent into chaos, and that we all facilitate when we let this happen. We should not let it happen. Nobody provides removal. What we all care about is protecting our democratic institutions. The law says if you have a case against the speaker, bring it on the floor, debate it, take a vote, and you remove him. Period. Mr. Sully said, why don't they come in the house? And I agree with him absolutely. If you think you have the vote, come in the chambers, call for a vote, remove the speaker. Anything other than that is a coup. It's extrajudicial. We shouldn't allow it. We should not stand for it. And I'm very disappointed that the executive seems to be incentivizing this nonsense, Senate budget and all that foolishness, all because they want Kun to become speaker. They tried before, they didn't succeed, and now they're trying to go through the back door and make Kun a speaker. Is this what this is about? And they go swear on the Bible with left hand raised and all that. No, it is very upsetting. It is very simple and clear. Come in the hall, take your 49 vote, boom, you have a new speaker. If you can't do it, abandon the cause, come to the chamber, and let's continue the people's business. They're going to be paying them anyway, and they're not doing anything. They will be taking pay. I'm sure they already have. I think it's unfair to our people, and I think our people are being held hostage because the executive wants Kun to be the speaker, and the 43, I hope not all of them, but I know most of them, they took bribes. The tips are all over the place. They took money. And somebody is afraid if they leave the hotel, they will run over to Fonadisa. That's what they mean, hold up in the hotel. We don't know. But this is really, it is concerning. Look at even the scorecard from the MCC. Rule of law is one of the concerns they have in Liberia. This exactly is what they're talking about.
Great, and that's why we'll get to the scorecard.
Yes.
Mr. Dukle, is the action or inaction of President Brouhaha the actual elephant in the room here? Because this is so confusing. Because why would 11 CDC lawmakers want Richard Kun, right? And what is because we see that Richard Kun, who President Brouhaha and the Unity Party wanted initially, is now the speaker on white ballot by the majority. So is President Brouhaha the elephant in the room here? His action or inaction?
Well, I mean, in the saga here, President Brouhaha has just empowered the breakaway faction to be successful. If you look at his actions, ever since this chaos erupted in the House of Representatives, all of his actions are just an indication to show that he is in favor of the majority bloc. Because I don't think President Brouhaha is doing this because he wants them to succeed. But President Brouhaha is keenly aware of the reality of that House of Representatives. President Brouhaha knows that at the end of the day, that faction, that so-called breakaway faction, is going to carry the day. And so in the end, eventually, he's going to have to work with them. And so now he's laying the groundwork for that. So it doesn't really matter whatever he does. Either way, he's going to have to end up working with them anyways. So he might as well start now. The fact that he presented the draft budget to them tells you where his head is. So
somebody told me he got no choice, right? Because
pardon me?
somebody told me he got no choice because the House goes by quorum. So where there is quorum, there where he sends the budget.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of choice here. President Brouhaha has seen the writing on the wall, just like those guys in the House have seen it, and he knows where the wind is blowing. So in this instance, I mean, what can he do, anyways? I think whatever he does now and whatever he doesn't do now really will have no significant impact as to the outcome of this standstill we are witnessing in the House of Representatives.
Mr. Sherry, what's the way forward?
The way forward is to get this madness over with and care about the Liberian people. And so I want to go back. I want to go back to something some of the previous speakers alluded to. Dennis, Liberia, this is not a young, democracy, so to speak. The democracy from in the 1840s was very imperfect, albeit it was a democracy. You're correct. There were elections held. Every 2 years, there were elections. And then they move it to every 4 years. And then Tubman comes along, 8 years. And then, eventually declare himself president for life, essentially. And so, we've always taken steps backwards as Liberians. After 1980, stuff like that. So everything has gone backwards. So when this president was set, nothing was done to correct the situation. When Tyler and others faced the same wrath that Fornati Kofa is facing now, nothing was done to correct that. And so if nothing is done, this is going to continue year after year, year after year. And I will submit to you, I do like President Brouhaha, someone that I endorsed in the election, although my endorsement didn't mean anything. But, I did look at the two candidates at the time, George Weah and Brouhaha, and said Brouhaha was going to win. And I do like some of his, policy pronouncements and whatnot. And
including the yellow machines, and
including especially the yellow machines,
and the buses from Ghana.
I do like that. The buses from Ghana, I do like that very much, and I still trust that President Brouhaha means business. But here's the deal, right? So the president tipped the scale in this situation by submitting that budget to the so-called majority black. There's no majority black in the Constitution. They are rebels. So you tip the scale against the speaker, the legitimate speaker of the House of Representatives, and you submit your budget to the rebels. And so what you're doing, you are influencing the decision of others who are on the fence, to come over, because now you are the executive. You're doing business with the other side. Then if something happened in the late 80s. I think I'm correct on this one. Tambaka Jangabai was about to be impeached or something along those lines, or removed as president pro tempore of the Liberian Senate. And Samuel Doe said, let who has not sinned cast the first stone. So Samuel Doe stood for Tambaka Jangabai, and Jangabai was left alone, and that never happened again. What I'm saying here is that we have an executive presidency in Liberia. If the president stood up to his people in the legislature and tell them exactly how important Speaker Kofa is to him. Speaker Kofa came over here, spoke to Jay Victor, would tell you, spoke to Eula, and he said that, he wants to work constructively with the president, even though he's not a member of the president's party. But he wants to work constructively, and he's working constructively with the president. So what more do you want? You just want to control the presidency. You want to control the legislature. You want to control the judiciary. You want to control everything. That's what this is about. So this is about power and greed and the money, the wealth that comes with it. My hope now is that President Brouhaha, I think this is done, by the way, with the acquiescence of President Brouhaha. You cannot exonerate President Brouhaha from this. His vice president name has been thrown around, as the donor, the financier of this operation. And so something needs to be done. President Brouhaha is the head of state. He can put the LACC to work. These guys that were bribed, there needs to be some kind of investigation. Are you hearing anything about LACC? We're not hearing anything along those lines. Everybody is busy talking about, well, that's what the Constitution said. This is constitutional. We are a democracy. You are a rotten democracy. That's what you are. There needs to be investigation. Some of these guys need to go to jail that took these bribes. People go to jail in the West, here in America. Lawmakers go to jail. They lose their positions. They go to jail. We mimic ourselves. We are small America. We're a democracy. You are not a perfect democracy. You are an imperfect democracy. You're a rotten democracy for what you're doing. This is just, you put this out here that you're a democracy, you're a free country, and therefore you can do all of these things. Why are you taking these bribes? Millions of dollars. Yeke Koluba told you that the prize money has gone up from $500,000 per representative to $700,000. Dennis, $700,000 can't run the university for 2 years. The University of Liberia for 2 years. Now the university is shut down. Schools in Bokong Jili are not functioning correctly, Dennis. Schools in Kalipo are not functioning correctly, Dennis. Schools in Kipamas are not functioning correctly. And these people, meanwhile, are distributing millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars among themselves. This is a problem. This is an existential problem that's eating away at the Liberian nation state. But the more you talk and people come back and say, oh yeah, Article 49, Article 34, Article this. What do the average Liberian care about 33, 49, 50, whatever?
Thank you. Thank you. ST said, I want us to conclude on this. We spent a lot of time on it.
I wanted to come
I'll
real
give
quick.
each of you ST Salif and Gabriel a minute each. To say, so now what? The UP, even though you want the speaker, UP is not majority. But it appears like I was interviewing one of the representatives on the other side of 43 and say, well, we can't go to the house, to the chambers to do this because the speaker is not going to put it on the floor. I said, well, how do you do your agenda? You don't vote on it? You guys are 43, so you determine what be on the agenda. He said, no, it's not like that. He's going to bring whatever he put there. Then the third person, when he say who in favor, say yeah, everybody will shout yeah, and then that's it. So if the Unity Party is not a majority and won the speakership, it's like everybody enjoys doing things this kind of way, that even the agenda of the speaker decides everything. Because if this is an actual democracy where people are voting, the speaker business wouldn't matter.
Right.
But it appears to me that everybody want to take advantage of what Mr. Sherry called the rotten democracy. What's your take?
Yeah, I will give my take, but I think J. Victor number wanted to respond to Mr. Sherry. Let me hear what he got to say, and then I will.
Thank you very much, Reverend. No, I'll be quick, but Dennis was asking about a way forward, and I think Mr. Sherry provided some of the answers as to the way forward. Maybe we should look at what could have been done that wasn't done, and maybe it will help us, to determine what could be done. He alluded to the executive presidency. Let's not elude ourselves here. Even though we have three coordinated branches of government, but the president of Liberia, he wields a lot of power. This president had a singular opportunity and responsibility to get his ducks in order from the very inception of this crisis, when he knew his people didn't have the numbers. He didn't do that. He let this thing fester. And then ECOWAS came into the country, and another singular opportunity presented itself. He refused to meet with the people. He initially refused, and I'm sure people calling me and say, you can't do this. And then he finally decided to meet with these people. So now here's what could happen. All of that opportunity as all missed opportunity. What I don't understand is, where is the Council of Churches? Why aren't they taking part in this problem? Why aren't they mediating? Where's our opposition?
I mean, why do we need mediation from religious people?
Because they have always been our peace brokers in the country. Dennis. Yeah. We need a way to bring the two sides together. To understand, right now they are loggerheads. They need to find a common ground. Now here's where we are. We have two speakers in the country. I don't see how this is going to be resolved. I don't know if it is going to be resolved politically or judicially. But I wanted to bring that up, and thank you for that.
So, Reverend, you have 30 seconds now.
Okay, it's okay. I listened to my colleagues, and democracy has to work. And no matter how hard we receive it, this is part of democracy. To blame the speaker, the president, I can't imagine me defending Joe Brouhaha today. You know me on the show. I'm not a defender of President Brouhaha, but to blame him for why he should send the budget to the majority black is it takes me aback. What was he supposed to do? The Constitution Article 33 says the removal, because that's where the thing getting messy. People trying to mix the removal and the House doing business. They're mixing the two, and that's why we got a whole conflict going. To remove the speaker or any of the officers of the House, you need a 2/3. That is a 49. But to do business of the country, you only need simple majority.
And where you need a simple majority to Bonja, and that's what we said.
The simple, yeah.
So you can just leave the place you're meeting and go somewhere and say, "Hey, my majority, we are here," and the president follows.
What the Constitution says is once you have a quorum, it does not give place. All you need is a quorum. If you like, meet wherever, but you must have a quorum. If you don't have a quorum, you cannot do anything.
You should have a quorum. Who should have this quorum?
The simple majority should have a quorum. Once there's a quorum.
It doesn't say that. It doesn't say simple majority.
No, that's what 33 says. I can read it. I got it up right now.
Yeah, 33. I can read it. Simple majority of each house shall constitute a quorum.
A quorum. Simple majority,
of a house. Of the house.
Each house. Each house, right. Yes.
Shall constitute a quorum.
A quorum. No, but you didn't end it.
Read for the transaction of business.
For the transaction of business. So if the simple majority is on the side of the 43, where will you send the budget? The country got to go forward.
Or where should it be to have this quorum?
The Constitution did not specify. It did not say you must meet in the chamber.
Yeah, but there's a precedent, right? There's a tradition. There's where we've been meeting. Right?
Sure, I accept that. I agree.
And then they did not meet to decide that, hey, we used to meet here, but now we are changing it.
Yes, so that's the crisis. Those are the things.
So President Brouhaha should recognize this crisis and say, because if they just broke away to meet anywhere because they want to score a constitutional point, now the president is following them. The president could simply say, Mr. Speaker, here's the budget, right? The speaker does not have a majority.
So that's why. So you just answered the question.
That's not his business to see.
If he submit a budget to Speaker Kofa, he does not have the quorum, so he can't do business.
So what will he do?
So what will be the use? Mm-hmm. If he submit the budget to Speaker Kofa, he does not have the quorum to do business. So then what's the use? So
what presidents do is the president send the vice president to work these things out, to lobby, right?
Dennis, where you making the mistake, Dennis? Where you making the mistake, and that's the mistake many other people are making. We have made the whole legislature, not the whole legislature, the House. We have made the whole House to be the whole thing of the speaker. But
No.
it's false. The House
No.
does not I'm coming. The House
No,
does
but
not
you say
operate.
everybody made mistakes except you.
No. Okay. Let me think about where most people are making a mistake. We have made the whole House to be a thing that revolves around the speaker. It says
No, it's not
every
true.
6 years, Article 49 says every 6 years,
It's not true.
the House shall
Anytime they
elect.
speak of the House, they speak of the House, and based on the tradition, is they are meeting in the chambers.
Yeah, but Dennis, if you follow,
you can go to Sophie Ice Cream and say, okay, the majority is on this
Dennis,
side.
right now you're not arguing the facts. You're only arguing about place. The Constitution says every 6 years the House shall elect a speaker, comma, a deputy speaker, comma, and other officers of the House for the smooth operation of the House. So it's not only the speaker that runs the House. So if the speaker is on one side and you have simple majority on this side with deputy speaker with other elected officers, why would you say that they cannot do business? That's why.
So we accept the fact that other officers can be elected, but we're refusing the fact that the speaker was elected and there is a process to removing.
No. We're not talking about removal. We already got past the removal. We're talking about submitting the budget. So finally, you guys just kept interrupting me. So finally, if JMB, let me make the final statement. If JMB is behind the removal of Kofa, which I'm not convinced, then he's not politically savvy because Kofa has never stood in his way. Kofa has given him everything he wanted. Kofa has worked with him. So which kind of president that has sense will say, I want to remove this president? The president is working with you. Kofa has, in fact, CDC have been angry that Kofa has been working too much with JMB and they did not want that. So a president that is politically savvy, you will be happy that you can use the speaker from the opposition who's giving you everything. I will keep business like that. So if he would be behind the removal of Kofa, then JMB is not politically savvy. Then
he wants the whole shebang. He doesn't want part of it. He wants the whole.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Because at the end, he could take credits for some of the work that's being done to say, I helped the president do this. I helped the president do that.
Why would you want to move him? And then to my brother Sheriff point, people should be investigated and go to prison. Then you rope in Brouhaha in because when they came in, it was in his house. When they wanted the Kun to be elected, that's why they were sharing the money in his house. It was how you call him that blew the whistle.
Right. So Mr. Salif, so if Kofa is removed and replaced by Kun, how do you exonerate Brouhaha?
I won't be able to exonerate him.
Right. That's the point.
I won't be able to exonerate him.
And I don't know what the Article 33 you are referencing, it also says, but a lower number may adjourn from day to day and compel the attendance of the absent members.
Of the absent member. That is by influence. That compelling is, listen, we don't have quorum, you got to come. But now it's a divided camp.
Compel is, you say influence, compel doesn't mean you entreat them. Compel.
No. When I say influence, you're not going to drag somebody.
No. I said the strategy I'm go out to arrest and bring them.
They say compel. I mean,
that's why they're in the hotel. That's why they're running away in the hotel.
That's what it means.
Yeah.
It's compel. And I'm wondering why did Kofa
then why has Kofa not done that?
That's what I'm saying. When Kofa went to the Supreme Court, he said something that didn't make sense. He said, "Stop them from meeting." How do you?
No, you can't stop them. You can drag them. You can compel them.
But you can compel them.
But Kofa's teeth have been knocked out by the executive because it is the executive that will enforce his power.
We don't have the proof for that. That is that we don't have the proof. That is.
We don't see it.
That one is a conspiracy theory.
let's talk about let's segue into the MCC scorecard, right? I hosted a lot of meetings, discussion on the MCC scorecard. Some would say, well, we don't need this, but this was a very big one, a criticism against the previous government. In fact, when they passed and they didn't get the money, it was like, boo you. Why are we not hearing much of the MCC scorecard this time? Does it still matter? Gabriel, you were the first. Gabriel, I want you to start with this or give a little background of the MCC scorecard and what it means. Just a summary of the reading that is out here.
So, in just a brief summary. As the MCC scorecard was something that was developed for mostly poor country. For me, without even trying to get too far into this, I have a lot of qualm about it in terms of the way the data is actually collected, who the data is collected from. But in essence, it was a grant kind of free money metrics that were put together that measures different categories such as your how you protect your natural resources, your political rights indicator, uh, access to education in terms of how many people are graduating, how many how do you call it, girls you're putting through college. I mean, primary schools or graduating primary schools, such as they look at your inflation data. They also look at your, how you protect your natural resources. In essence, all of those things carry what we call a weighted average score on that scorecard. At the end, you're given a score, which is what you're seeing on here, and depending on the amount of category the country passes, they are eligible to get the, I think it's $250 million grant. However, there are, like you alluded to, in an instance where a country might pass the scorecard and not get the grant. Again, there's a little bit of nuance in that, in terms of how they determine who gets the grant or not, because that actually goes to the board. And I think we had an argument that last year when the previous administration didn't get the grant. But in essence, this is a tool that is used to assess poor country development on different economic indicators.
Thank you.
So that's
So
in essence,
Gabriel,
this is
while we are there, I don't know, it's so small for you to see, but economic freedom talk about fiscal policy where we're in the red, and inflation. So you see the color, right?
yes.
So
So
red means
like
fail.
yeah, so the red mean fails and the green mean we pass. I can, as I said, I can give my whole qualm about some of these. Let me say
So
what I
no,
want to
I
say,
just
and I
want
will
to
shut up.
present it as is first, and then we can
Right.
analyze. So
So
economic
the
freedom, fiscal policy is fail, inflation
right,
pass,
right.
regulatory quality pass, trade policy fail,
We failed in trade
gender in
policy.
economy pass,
Yep.
land rights and
Land
access
rights,
pass, access to credit pass, employment opportunity
employment
pass.
opportunity. We got 100.
And then we come
Um,
to ruling justly, political
and then we
rights
got
pass,
political rights. Yep.
civil liberties, control of corruption
Hmm.
pass. Then we have government effectiveness fail, the rule of law fail, freedom of
Hmm.
information pass, health expenditure fail, education expenditure fail, natural resource protection fail, immunization rate pass, girls primary education completion rate fail,
Fail.
child health
Yep.
fail.
So let me say what I wanted to say, and I will shut up. Right. So as you guys saw that scorecard on the board, and here's the reason why I've been like one of the biggest critics of this scorecard, at least from our country's standpoint. The most important aspect that we need to pass in order for the entire country to benefit, we fail in those areas. Like it's like somebody taking a test and all of the highly weighted questions that are on there, the difficult one that the professor allocated difficult, I mean higher points to. We failed them, but we only passed the easy answers on there,
The
not an
true or
easy
false.
question.
Anytime they say essay, you fail. True or false, you pass.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I understand, but the thing is, like, these are not true or false questions. These are not true or false questions. These are like things where you have to show, and that's exactly what it is. You have
It's
to
not a
show your
teacher,
work.
so he doesn't understand what I'm saying.
these are these are things where you have to show. Anyway, let me make the point here, and I will shut up. Right, the point that I'm trying to make, some of the most important aspect, like of in terms of the rule of law, investing in girls' education, things that we can benefit, not just benefit from now, but in perpetuity, that incents, that ensures our democracy continue, and we continue to put out some of the best quality people in the country to rule the country and carry us. We are failing in those areas, like trade policy, all of those things. right? There's smaller things that I don't think, in as much that they are important, that they don't carry too much weight. Those are the smaller hanging fruits that we're passing. So I think that's one of the reasons why you're not hearing too much noise about it, because people will point these things out, that the most important thing, your concession, how to protect your concession, your trade policies, you're failing in those areas, but you cannot come here and say you're celebrating all the other, low hanging fruits. So that's my qualm about that. But that's what I think about that in a nutshell. Yep.
All right, Victor. Victor, there was a lot of, especially those of you who wanted to, do it in the CPP and other places. This was a big deal about filling the MCC scorecard. I think we have 14 now, is less than that. But Gabriel made a very important point, right? So we fail on government effectiveness. We fail on fiscal policy. We fail on trade policy. We fail on rule of law. We fail on health expenditure. I mean, you don't have a healthy population, what are you doing? We fail on an education expenditure. We fail on natural resource protection. We fail on girls' primary education completion rate. We fail on child health. Does that? But we pass political rights, civil liberty, control of corruption, land rights, gender in the regulatory equality, and so on. Let me hear from you.
Yeah, I saw, the government also, I think, would pass on reducing corruption. And, look, the fact that we passed, I will commend the government for at least putting all above, the filling mark. But the key sectors in which we failed, I think they're very concerning, especially education and health. I mean, I believe education is one of the letters in the arrest agenda. And when I saw the report card, I was a little bit confused, because I know the president the government is really contending with several competing priorities. But then again, there are those priorities among the priorities that you prioritize as your agenda. And education is one of those. How do you let that slip away? And health, child health. I think those are key sectors. I hope this is a wake-up call. Hopefully next time coming around, some of these issues will claim the attention of the government. But I congratulate them. Yes, President, we are passed even with a greater mark than this current government. I think he passed by 14 points or so, and I think this government passed by either 10 or 11 points. So I honestly, people like Gabe and maybe Mr. Dukley and Mr. Sherry, they understand, and Salif, they understand, the inner mechanism that lead to passing out of it. But I found that very difficult to understand. How is it that Monrovia and other parts, and even Liberia, looking around, you can tell me corruption has been reduced in that country? How? Where did that happen? I mean, you just need to open the newspaper or go on social media, and you see all these stories. They abound of corrupt practices here and there. So if it is reduced, as compared to what? So I don't understand that. But I think this is a feather in the cap. I think they should wear it proudly, and hopefully they will improve when they come next time coming around.
Thank you, Mr. Dukley. So when we see the MCC scorecard, they talk of things like a fiscal policy. What do you think the government is not doing, or the country is not doing, for which we are failing things? Where do you think these failures coming from? The things that we are failing in: fiscal policy, trade policy, government effectiveness, rule of law, health expenditure, education, natural resources, girls' education, child health. What do you think we fail there?
The way I look at it is this. I think when you look at the overall score, in reality, there is not a progress. I don't see progress here. And here's why I say that. If you look at the indicators that the Liberian government has, these are all indicators that they are concerned with relative to our bilateral partners and our multilateral partners. And the part of the score that really has to do with the progress and development of Liberia, those were all ignored, because now the whole objectives becomes how much money can we get from this United States assistance, and then we can go back to business as usual. Because when you look at the corruption reduction metrics, to even say that the Liberian government was able to pass that, even though there was a digression of 2%, it's kind of hard to say. But I mean, something like government effectiveness, health expenditure, and natural resources protection. These are areas that can have a direct impact on the people of Liberia, and so you can easily see how the government priority was to satisfy our partners, in this instance, I guess the United States, so that we can keep getting the money coming, because the perks that come with these MCC scorecard, I mean, the threshold is not actually that big. You just need to pass 10 out of the 20. And so the area that we were lacking are areas that would directly benefit and directly affect the Liberian people. So I'm not hopeful at all, because the way the metrics works and the way you guarantee the 5 years of assistance, I think that's the only priority that the government had, to make sure that they keep the money coming, and places that is supposed to improve on directly affecting the Liberian people were ignored.
Mr. Sharif,
Yeah.
sometimes, let's face it, this scorecard can be very political. At a time, based on our political interest, we say, "Oh, it doesn't matter. These are Western ideas. In fact, they don't even know us." And based on who we support, we say, "Oh yeah, the failed scorecard or the pass." I remember Tue had a whole program, and he was singing, serenading George Weah. Tell me about the scorecard. How does it really impact us? What does it do? Do you believe it, that is actually measuring what it's supposed to measure?
No, this is again, I don't like these scorecards. For reason being, these are neo-colonial instruments, and so I will beg to differ with most of my colleagues, and in fact, when they were doing the whole celebration last time, I differ with them. I still differ, because here's the thing: these are things that we're supposed to be doing anyway. Why are you failing any metrics in here? You're not supposed to fail anything. This is what you're supposed to do for your country. And the fact that you have to be put on some kind of metrics to get free money, it's ridiculous. So they fail government effectiveness. So again, I go back to what J. Victor said. So when they talk about control of corruption, how was that measured? Areas that Liberia passed, how were those measured? So what I think is that the guys that were doing this, right? They nudge the government alone to be able to get this money. Liberia could have failed all of this, most of this, not all, but most of this. But I believe it depends on the administration, at the time. It depends on who's in office. There's going to be a change in Washington. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next year. So let's wait and see what happens next year if the same obtain, right? So my disposition is, I don't like these scorecards. This is something that you as a government, you're supposed to do. And Dennis, it's not going to help in the future the charade, you know, the extracurricular activities, corruption that's not going on in your legislature right now, right? That's put on full display, even though everyone knows, you know, everybody knows that the legislature is very corrupt. Okay, so it's the executive, right? Not just Brouhaha. This didn't start with Brouhaha. I mean, this started way back. So this continues up to this day. So it'll be interesting to see when the scorecards come out next year, because all of what they're doing now is going to factor into that, I believe. And so, you know, that's my take on this. And then lastly, what are they using this, you know, the grant that Liberia gets? How are they using this? We don't have any report on that. At the end of the day, we don't get any report. The Liberian people get no report as to how this money benefited. Who did it benefit? This is, you know, this is millions of dollars. Who did it benefit at the end of the day? We don't know that.
Let me give you one example of this, right? Fiscal policy, and I'm coming to you, Mr. Pastor Salif. Is it a fiscal policy indicator? This indicator measures the government's commitment to prudent fiscal management and private sector growth.
Right.
And what's the methodology used? This indicator is general government net lending borrowing as a percent of GDP, averaged over a 3-year period. Net lending or borrowing is calculated as revenue minus total expenditure. And Gabriel, you know what I'm talking about. So just to give you an example of what they are doing, and you should watch the Everywhere Marketplace tomorrow. We're going to do a deep dive in the scorecard and also the draft budget. Mr. Salif, I know you, Pastor Salif, you saw a little bit of the draft budget and what we are seeing now. Do you see a correlation, if there's any, right? Because whatever they are trying to measure is based on what we are doing. Do you see us putting money somewhere? Do you see us doing something that will tell us that we are fiscally responsible? Those kind of things. So look at the budget, look at the 10 months of President Brouhaha and see how you can explain the scorecard we've just looked at.
I mean, I will put it in the typical Liberian way for those who went to school in Liberia, that they want to call buying gray. You know, we bought this other gray because it does not speak any reality of what's on the ground. When I look at this, especially talk about control of corruption, you pass that in Liberia. It's not a reality. Freedom of information is not a reality. So many things have happened in these 8-10 months of Joseph Brouhaha that the public has never been informed about. Nothing. We don't know anything, including the recent saga with Guinea and all of that, plane fly into Liberia, the president jetting off to Ghana in his very first week, and so many other things, investigation with DEA and police fighting over foolishness. All the investigation, we have not had any outcome or any of those things. So to tell me that this administration passed freedom of information, they passed control of corruption, inflation. I mean, so it just, I don't believe anything here. I don't know what indexes they use, how they measure these things. I don't know, but it's not a reality of what we know. I was in Liberia in January, so I don't know from whence they gather this information, the indicators. I don't believe it. Are they just using some friends to collect this data? I don't understand it. So it just doesn't reflect reality. Even the draft budget doesn't even reflect anything that we pass here. So these things happen all the time. And like somebody said, Western government, I've seen it when I was in Nigeria. I've seen it when I was in Liberia, when Ellen was president. Transparency International, they come, they go to Ellen, they have their meeting, they finish talking, they come up with this fantastic report. Liberia is this, Liberia is that. All of those things are influenced Those people too, they make money. Those international people that travel, government bribes those people to put a good report for them. I'm not saying that's what happened in this case, but I'm saying this code sheet does not reflect the reality on the ground, and that is what I would. That's where I will stop for now.
As a
I
teacher, I'm looking in the face of Mr. Brouhaha Ducle, and I see some questions. I see some disagreements.
I can see it.
Yeah, Mr. Ducle, tell me if I'm reading you wrong.
You're right.
Yeah, and based on my 35 years of teaching experience, I'm not going to get it wrong.
You saw question in your face already.
Yeah, I saw a question.
Right.
Go ahead, Mr. Ducle, go for it.
Dennis, one thing jumped out of me when Brother Sharif said he is not a supporter of this to begin with. And what came to my mind was, why are they in power for to begin with? If we are not talking about people who want to drag their country into where they are dragging Liberia, I mean, do we have to be told to have an effective government that serves its people?
Right.
Do we have to be told that we need to improve girls' education in our country? So the resources and all the things that we have what do we have them for? What are they supposed to be for? So I think there is a charade on the part of the government. I mean, it just speaks to the fact that our government has become a government that wants to depend on donors to keep asking for money, and to get this. And again, it just reminds me of the fact that in politics, reality, perception is a reality, despite what the indicator says. Go and talk to the average Liberian; they will tell you that there's no improvement in my life. And to him or her, that is her reality. That is his reality. Whatever you say about the MCC metrics or whatever, it means absolutely nothing to them. And that's what matters. It is for those people that is supposed to benefit. So it's really shameful to see that we have to meet up certain metrics based on what the United States government wants to do for us, to have an effective governance and all those things that we're supposed to pass. I mean, do we really need that? No, but it goes to speak to the mindset of our leaders and people who govern us. And I've always said it here. One of the things that we are lacking in our country is leadership. And since the cessation of hostility, Liberia has not been blessed with a leader who is visionary, who looks beyond the moment, who can come up with something that can be planned for the long-term future, for the long-term benefit of our people. And so this MCC scorecard is just one example to show you why we are going to remain in this quagmire until such time that we are fortunate to have that visionary leader who is actually going to lead us from the mess we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
And Gabriel, let's conclude on this. If you look in the House now, where Speaker Funati Kofa is like the Speaker business that is very right, you got to go wherever to get it. And you look at the 43. Do you think where do you think the priority is? Because all the scorecard we're talking, yes, I agree with Mr. Ducle. Nobody has to tell us that we should send our girls' children should complete primary school, or we need to be fiscally responsible. But if you look at the government, an example is what's going on in the House. Where you think the priority is?
And to what Mr. Ducle was saying, I absolutely agree with you. And this, when I spoke earlier, that's what I said. I don't agree with. It's not that I don't agree with it. I just think it's flawed in terms of the underlying way they collect data. If you haven't dug deeper into this, the data comes from World Bank, the IMF, Heritage Foundation, out of any foundation, Heritage Foundation, for those of you who don't know Heritage Foundation, please go look into it. I can really is a very, what do you want to call it, conservative foundation that
Far
some
right.
of their policy, they were probably, they were some of the people that were behind the Project 25 or whatever you call it thing. So these are some of the people we get the data from: Heritage Foundation, IMF, the World Bank, right? And like most of you have said here, the things that they're supposed to be looking for in terms of the data they collect on these various category are not something, if they were to appoint any of you to go collect those data, the things that you will look for. You will look for something contrary to what they look for here, right? So that's the fundamental flaw aspect of the methodology here. The other thing here is that, and I think most of you have alluded to this, is it's like you're dangling a carrot in front of a poor country. Hey, keep chasing this. If you do this, I will give you a piece of the carrot. If you do this, I will give you a piece of the carrot. The reason why I have a problem with this, where did the data come from? I will say this, and I always say it. We have the ability to collect our own economic data. Contrary to, in addition to what the World Bank or IMF puts out, we have the ability to collect, to assess our education system and say, this is what we want to do as a nation, instead of somebody else coming to say, if you do this, if you behave in a certain way, I will give you $250 million over a 5-year period. If you don't meet that category, I don't give it to you. So in essence, instead of you looking at everything collectively as a whole, you're only focusing like a tunnel vision on those very metrics that they put in front of you, like a test sticker, right? To just pass the test and get the points that you need to get. You're not looking at everything holistically. That's how we look at everything. And this is why we're struggling as a nation. I think that the Dukele keep pointing this out. We have a tunnel vision on the metric. All we want to do is pass them, that we're not looking at our economy holistically. I will answer your question, Dennis, and I will shut up. In terms of what the House these are some of the most important things the House is supposed to be looking at. The Senate, that whole speaker, I understand the speaker overthrowing the coup that they're carrying on right now is a threat to our democracy. But these are some of the things that they're supposed to be focusing on too, in addition to that. But as I keep saying,
Maybe they are bored. They don't have anything to do.
It's not that I don't think they don't have anything to do. I think they're too self-driven, self-interest driven so much, right? That somebody can come pay you to come fight for them, to the point you forget about the important thing that is important to the rest of the country. So I think that's the problem we have. So
thank you.
I'll rest that case on that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Friday Night Debate. We are discussing the House Speaker Brouhaha, the MCC Scorecard. And the last one is the Freeport. Full disclosure, I want to be superintendent of Sino and the Freeport of Greenville. I mean, when we were growing up, that was the place to be, right? There's a report that if you let me, that they're trying to decentralize the port, where the port of Greenville, the port of Harper, Buchanan, the Freeport of Monrovia will be on their own. Right now, what the ports are, they all operate under the NPA, the National Port Authority. And sometimes some people find it hard to distinguish the NPA and actually the Freeport, but the Freeport is just one of the 4 ports that the NPA oversees or manages. So when I read that they are trying to have autonomy, I'm like, okay, what would the autonomy look like? What is it that they are looking for here? Because I thought we are already operating just like all our other areas, like the FDA. You have FDA, you have this ministry, health ministry, and we don't have health ministry for each county. So, and unfortunately, there's the story that I was reading in the front page. It says the Liberian Senate has endorsed a bill seeking to create an independent seaport and inland port regulatory authority, where it appears to be that what NPA was doing. And also, so according to that, at the same time, the Senate has passed a bill for Liberia seaports decentralization and modernization. according to the bill, the National Port Authority from its creation has managed the 4 ports, including the free ports of Monrovia and the port of Buchanan. The Joint Committee observed that the focus and attention of the National Port Authority has been mainly on the largest port, that's the free port of Monrovia, and neglect the other ports. The decentralization of the seaports aimed to salvage the negative impacts of centralization on the seaports. And that's what I put in your article in the headline. Is it actually autonomy or privatization? Let me start with you, Mr. Douglas. You read the article yourself, and unfortunately, there's nowhere for me to check to really see the bill that was passed. And one of the things, we don't have anywhere to go when we want to see these things. But now we are all engulfed in this speaker brouhaha as if it's going to put food on anybody's table. Is this actual autonomy, or somebody is trying to do something to sell these ports or privatize them, or do what? What's your reading?
I mean, Dennis, when I was reading that article, that was the inference that I drew from it. It sounded like there is something in the mix. There's something that is being planned, because as they are, by their very nature, they are autonomous, as far as I know. Right now, all the ports in Liberia are autonomous. The port of Monrovia, the one in Greenville, the one in Buchanan, yeah, they're all operating under the auspices of National Port Authority.
Yeah.
But what I gather was that there's something, either is in the early stages of planning, or they have gone far and they're trying to find a way to come up to present it to the Liberian people in a way that it will be acceptable, because they were talking about revenue generating more revenue for the ports and improving services. And the only way I can see those things happening is if they are, if they are not in our hands. By that I mean they are not in the Liberians' hands, and when we're going to be giving it out for profits. So my suspicion is the way our government functions and the way I've seen them do things in the past. I think this is headed for privatization.
Is that a good thing?
Well, for privatization, it is a good thing,
because
it's supposed to be a good thing.
Now, this is not like any concession. That's you. So if you are not able to manage your own seaport, if you give it to somebody else, you might as well give up your sovereignty.
In a perfectly functioning democracy and functioning government, privatization would be what you want to attract investors to do in your country, to privatize some of the resources that you have got. Only that the way our government works is really not to improve things for its people. It's only to enrich themselves, line up their pockets. Otherwise, that could be something that we can privatize, and those private owners can invest in Liberia. They can create more jobs. I mean, that's what the global market is all about. Yes, we have the resources, but we cannot manage our resources to benefit ourselves in a way that an investor cannot. It's going to be for profit, and so the government can also gain some revenue from that, and it can help to ease the unemployment, the chronic unemployment that we have in Liberia. You have young people, some of whom are qualified, or some of whom are university graduates, roaming the streets with nothing to do. So if you have places like the Southeast, where the unemployment is endemic to the point where it's even affecting the population growth in that part of Liberia. If the ports in Greenville is privatized, and the investor, whoever buys it, invest in that port, it can be a huge relief to the government, where they can create a lot of jobs. as we saw ArcelorMittal did in what is it, Yekepa and the surrounding areas. They've created a job for a lot of people, and we've seen the impact, what they've had, even though I do have some reservations on some of the things they've done and some of the things they haven't done. But I think privatization is good, but it should be good for the country.
That's scary. Mohammed,
Yeah.
anytime we talk of even these concessions, right? Sometimes we take decentralization to a different level when we think, and maybe let me extend the argument this, when we think that oh, this is in the county, so it's for the county, right? Oh, as ArcelorMittal, this is our thing, right? It's, but let me ask you, on first of all, your reading of that and what they are trying to do here. It's not in the open. We just hear of this bill. Oh, I know our man Sam Wallace called the port manager. The port manager is not even going to understand this. I want to see what the law says that they are doing. What is it? Right now, we understand how the NPA is operating and how the other ports, which I believe all of them are underutilized. Greenville Port is like nothing going on there. Buchanan Port is like for exporting iron ore and so on and so forth. So they are not. And what I'm hearing Douglas saying is like, hey, we can't do this for ourselves, so let's call somebody else to do it for us. But at the same time, we say, hey, why is the MCC people telling us, about these codes? So I'm lost there. But what's your reading?
Well, but what he's saying, Brother Douglas is also saying there is, I mean, if you say you are a capitalist economy, which Liberia says they are, so you want to do something to attract, foreign investment. So now I believe that some form of public-private partnership may be a way to go. Because look, the ports of Greenville, what has been done there now? Like, what is the government doing? The government has not been a good manager of anything, let alone the ports. So, you're trying to grant these, autonomy. That's what they're trying to do to these ports because, as you mentioned in the intro there, we always think that, the Freeport, Monrovia is dominating everything. So now what they're trying to do is to decentralize port operations where the counties have, these ports in these different counties have more autonomy over these ports. The question still is still in government's hands. Now, the government has not been a good manager. So I will favor some form of, much as I don't like the private partnership, but that I think is the way to go here because of the government's track record of not, of underutilizing these ports. And look at what's happening. When you look at the Freeport, when you look at, what's coming through the port, what do we have going on? Not everyone is treated equally. You have, some of our officials, public officials who don't even pay duties. They're clear of paying duties. So, if you have some kind of private partnership, maybe some of that will be alleviated. And, some of our legislations have to be changed as well. Not giving your legislators, blanket coverage in terms of benefits, that, they don't pay duties on imports. That's, to me, is unacceptable. And so when you start that way, you start, a little bit of private, public partnership and see what production and see where that goes. I think I favor that better than, an exclusive private, ownership. Brother Duke mentioned, the unemployment in these counties is very high, Dennis. We don't usually talk about these, but it's extremely high. So, other than taking the sand from the port of Greenville, people, sand miners are going in there. So whether or not this is being controlled is another thing. I heard that Chinese companies are going in some of these areas, mining sand from that area and exporting these sand to foreign countries. And this is detrimental to our environment. So something needs to be done. And this is very crucial. And it's not talked about much.
Yeah. And Gabriel, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, Dennis, I think if excuse me, if we're going to privatize it, I think this is a good idea. And the reason why I think it's a good idea, for several reasons, I think everybody have pointed that out. Meaning, for right now, the only gateway to our economy is through the free port of Monrovia, which is one port of entry that is dredged for commercial ships to come in. Right, we don't have any other gateway besides, plane that comes in and bring. A lot of people can't afford things on plane. Right, so that's the only gateway. And the reason why I think this would be a good idea, because it now, like Mr. Sherry said, it decentralizes the gateway into the country. We're literally just going to open that up to everyone, right? Imagine
But
you have
developing the port is different from decentralizing, though. I
no,
mean, you can
it
develop the
does it
port and
by
still only have the government.
it does it by default. So let me explain, right?
Hmm.
So let's say we want to privatize the port of Buchanan, right?
Right.
And from an equity standpoint, I will structure it this way: 100%. We establish what's called a special purpose vehicle, meaning as entity, the government owns 20%, the citizen of Liberia own 20%. That means for those of you that want to invest, own 20%. The other 60% goes to the private entity. That's one. We allow them to dredge that port for commercial use in Buchanan. They can run it on a 25-year lease agreement basis to be reviewed every 25 years lease. The government owns the land. They control, they regulate what comes in and what goes out. So the private entity owns 60%. Now, here's why I believe is going to decentralize. Imagine commercial ships now going to Buchanan, bringing in containers in Buchanan. It automatically, people will start moving into that area, right? By force, people will start moving to that area because ships and container will now be going to that area. People will start moving there. What it will also do,
No, but
let's
how is
say,
that decentralization now? We talk, and that's what I want to do, right? You can still have a port, airport, or seaport in Greenville. I want to fly from here directly to Greenville, right?
so what is, okay, let me explain, right? So what is going to happen by putting a port there? Not everybody who will bring their container in Buchanan will want to bring that same container back to Monrovia. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
If that was the
That's right.
case, you will want to leave. You will use the Freeport in Monrovia. So that means there will be a lot of business activities happening in Buchanan because of the
So to
containers
you,
that are going there.
decentralizing me, you're not going through Monrovia to go there.
You're not going through Monrovia to go there, but because of the activity, the business activity that is happening
Right.
in Buchanan,
So all we
a
need
lot
is
of
business
people
activity. It got nothing to do with decentralization. You need
people
to
will
operate.
gradually move. It's happening in Ivory Coast right now. Yamoussoukro is the de facto capital of Ivory Coast. Abidjan is just a commercial hub. Right
Political.
now, right, there are a lot of people moving to Yamoussoukro because
Yeah.
of the congestion, right? The same thing. That's exactly what will happen if we are to dredge a port in Buchanan, right? The same thing will happen. It won't happen instantaneously. It will happen gradually, right? And for me, the most important thing I want to say is that if that happen, the kind of jobs that it'll create in that area. Let's say right now we have about 1,500 people that are directly employed at the port, a free port. If you do the same thing, you will have that almost equivalent in Buchanan as well. Now you take that a step further in Greenville, and you want to do that a step further in Maryland, right? Here's the point here in our yield. The point that I'm trying to make here is that it is expensive right now, Dennis, to clear a container at the Freeport of Monrovia. Those of you who ships, you know that. It is very expensive. And that's because there is one entity, one company that has a monopoly on that shipping route, on that shipping, the gateway to our economy. So they put a stranglehold on what comes in, what they can charge without anybody being able to regulate them. The government cannot dictate to them because they have that contract. If you are to do this, privatize just one port in Buchanan, you now give them a competition. It will force them to reduce their price because
Yes.
they now have a direct competition, right? And with the government having control over that, private citizens also investing in that, it opens up the economy to allow people to bring things in and out of the country easily, cheaply, and have a lot of business activity going on. That's the reason why I am for this privatization.
And Dennis, real quick, right, to Gilbert's point, if you try to export,
give a point, right?
you try to export a vehicle right now to through the port of Monrovia, I mean, you pay twice more than you will pay exporting through the port of Conakry, know, in any other port. So
and to say the solution is privatize it, that's the connection I'm not getting.
Yeah, but
how are you going to do that?
Dennis, where you are stuck is, what you're reading is, well, you're going to lose your sovereignty. How are you going to lose your sovereignty if it's public-private partnership? I mean, forget about this. It's been 170 plus years. The government has not been able to manage these ports. What are they doing now in Greenville, at the port of Greenville? People are using the beaches at these ports as latrines and stuff like that. Others are mining sand. So this is how we're going to maintain our sovereignty. It's like people always telling me, we can't do this in our country. We can't do this to our country. But that's the very thing that we're doing to our country. We're damaging our country.
I mean, it's like we're replacing.
You want to find.
I want to bring in Victor.
Right, you want to find something different. If it works, I mean, if it works,
responsible, stop the corruption. Operate these things. Open up the country.
I would like to make a point when Victor finishes.
You are a capitalist economy. That's what they say you are. So you're going to run away from that? That's what they say you are.
But Dennis, before Victor interjects, how different would this be from the other concessions that we have signed to companies? How different would this be?
It's not for concession.
The logging companies, stealing our diamonds.
That's different.
How different? How different is it?
How different? It's the same.
Victor, let me hear from you.
I like it. That's a good question.
Victor, my question is that actually the law, what we are reading on the surface, that's not what the Senate or the representative, that's not what they are saying. They are not talking about privatization. They are saying autonomy.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
I even though I've been on a drought here for almost 1 hour now, but I like to give maybe 5 seconds of my time, and then I'll come after him.
What are you doing?
Okay, let me go to Pastor Talib.
No, Gabriel, I'm coming. Gabriel wanted to say something.
Let me make a point. I just wanted to clarify something to Dennis, right? Dennis, the structure that I was proposing, I know you're concerned about our sovereignty. You still maintain your sovereignty if you structure it in a way. You can even structure it where the government owns 50%. You give 25% to the investor, and you give the other 25% to the private citizen, like those of you who will want to invest in that, right? You maintain that control. You maintain the regulating of what goes in and what comes out without giving up control of it. You can structure it that way, so you can still do it and still maintain your sovereignty. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you. And what the law is saying now is saying, hey, the Freeport, which I think doesn't make any sense, that they have neglected the other ports. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create, instead of NPA, we're going to create a board. And so the different ports, they're not going to report to one port director, NPA director, they're going to report to the board. And I don't see how does...
Am I coming?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I agree with Mr. Sheriff. Government is not a good manager of anything. I think, as a matter of fact, I think privatization should be the ideal, even though that's not what the write-up is saying. I think what the write-up is essentially saying is they're trying to divest decision-making by these ports from the port managing director, who is usually resident in Monrovia.
Which is window dressing to me.
They're giving them more autonomy. If you listen to the write-up, they're talking about the citizens of this area also being part of the managerial process. I think what this is if it is done well, I think it's a good thing, because what we're suffering from in Liberia is almost all of the revenues that are generated outside of like Monrovia they're sent to Monrovia first, and then the central government distributes, whatever share supposedly to these generating entities. So I think what this seeks is to give these port cities or these areas the more flexibility on deciding on how to manage these ports and therefore how to expand the fund. I think that is going to make it more efficient. What is a little bit I'm unclear on is this seems to be coming on the heel of this multi-use agreement that HPX is trying to put in place.
And that's what I was coming to next.
Which is coming through the port of, which is we all know is likely to come through the port of Buchanan. All of that, how all of these are tied into each other, I haven't understood that yet. But the write-up, according to the write-up, as I understand it, I think they're giving these port managers more flexibility because right now, as it stands, there is the National Port Authority, which manages the Port of Monrovia, Port of Buchanan, Port of Greenville, and Port of Harper. But now they're going to divest all of that from the port manager in Monrovia. He will just manage the Port of Monrovia, and there will be managers who will manage it, the various ports, all of them supervised by a board. But it will all be independent entities reporting to the board, with the citizens of those areas being part of the decision making. I think it should be.
Victor, how does that change anything? Take for instance the school in Putukan. There's nothing there. The
Right.
school that in Paye got nothing, and you say,
Right.
okay, instead of you being under the Ministry of Education, now you'll be on your own.
Right.
So I don't see how that's fixing anything.
So the school in Putukan, when the school fees are collected, the people will sit right there and decide on how to expand it, as opposed to sending the school fees to Monrovia, and then Monrovia sends the school share to it, and then they decide on how to use it.
Yeah, because
So by the time,
we're not a federal, state, right? What I see there is if there is corruption, if there's pervasive corruption,
yes,
whether the person, and you are saying, okay, at least let the person there steal it and not the person here. That's
Right,
how it
right.
appears to me. It's like we are not fixing anything.
Right.
We
But
really-
Dennis, here's one thing, right? So what we can do is we can also learn from, the neighboring countries, specifically Ivory Coast. I think Ivory Coast has this model where, it's private-public partnership. They have the port of Abidjan and the port of San Pedro. So they've been able to do this. So why don't we, so it's before the government can launch into something like this. I mean, they can send their Minister of Commerce to, Cote d'Ivoire, consult with these guys, make feasibility studies, all these different things, and then that will inform your decision. This is a big decision that they're about to make if this legislation goes through, even with the autonomy that they're talking about. So you can learn from countries that have done it successfully, like Ivory Coast has done it. And
I think it's a little piece of what the days of Blum Nelson and others at the Ministry of Internal Affairs have been pushing, the decentralization. Take the central government outside of Monrovia.
Yeah.
I think this is really an opportunity if it is done well. The autonomy that they're giving these ports, I think there's a very high probability that they'll be managed more efficiently. Because this is why even in this country, these big
I don't know about that. If it remains in government hands,
if it remains
I don't see it because
part of the decision.
I mean,
Like I said,
this is like
privatization will be the ideal because then I think they'll be managed more efficiently.
and that person will still be appointed by the government, the president.
No, the private entities are not appointed by the government.
No, we're talking about what they are saying. But
That's
that
what they're
takes me to this other one, which they call the multi-user rail deal with HPS, could
Yes.
generate over 1.6
And
billion.
the one is declaring that I have been defeated over. I don't know how that is anything that I have been defeated over. But
Okay, let me hear from Pastor Salif on the port issue, and then join that with this HPS, because it appears to me that we are always looking for somebody to give us money.
yeah,
I mean, I was not even born when my father was planting palm trees in Doruiken. Now we can't even do a palm farm. We got to get golden verulam. We got to get this person.
right?
yeah,
So it's always we are looking for
Yeah.
somebody to do stuff for us.
absolutely. I read it right up as Pastor is coming. I read it right up. Right now, iron ore is going for almost over $100 a ton. They're giving it to them for $2.10 a ton. Now, I understand there are other things that are going to happen there, but First of all, there is no time. They don't discuss the time frame. How long are these people going to have this agreement for? They're projecting to generate between 2 to 5 million tons per year, with the possibility of generating 50 million tons per year. So we supposedly will generate 1.6, and of course there will be other investment other than no. Put the thing forward, let all of us see it and scrutinize it. I'm sorry, Pastor.
Okay, let's say the current government need 1.6 billion to do something. So
Right.
okay, give it to us quickly. Let's use it so that our government, so we can use that in the next election.
But you know, they already started eating on that money, right? Somebody was given to
they started eating your sin. We have time.
Exactly.
Pastor Salif.
I think what's going on, I listen to everybody. What's going on is we have a lazy government. Our government is very lazy. Over the years, we have not been involved in massive human capital development. We have never prioritized local content. That's why we always want to beg for money outside. We got the capacity to be able to generate revenue eternally, but we can't generate revenue. We cannot adequately generate revenue eternally if we are not developing our human capital, if we are not prioritizing local content, if we're not doing those, then of course we only look in the hands of the foreigners. Now, when it comes to giving autonomy to the ports, I think I'm not going to be too quick to criticize the move. Maybe they have good intention there, but I have not seen the good intention because I know Liberian government. Right now, I've been to the port of Harper. I have not been to the port of Greenville. But the port of Harper that I went to, I know it's supposed to be more effective than the port in Greenville. And nothing there is, there's nothing at Harper. So these ports are not viable. They are not viable. And I think the government doesn't want to spend money in those places. So they come under this idea of, hey, let's make them autonomous. Making them autonomous, who's going to run it? The counties don't have money. So where would those ports develop themselves? It cannot develop themselves. I've been there. There's nothing happening. The port of Buchanan is only managing to run because of ArcelorMittal that is shipping iron ore from there. Besides that, there is nothing. I toured the port of Buchanan when Ellen was in power. There's nothing that was going on. They had one ship there. All the old Firestone rubber trees, they cut them down, chipped them, because there was a company in Europe that needed them to generate, to create biofuel. They were using those trees to do that. And once that was over, that was finished. So it's slick. I don't know what they mean by you can only give something autonomous that is viable. You know, even the states, we're not even allowing the states to do anything on their own. They're not even viable. How would those ports develop themselves? That is one thing. And then when it comes to privatization, it's a good thing. Every country around the world, because one thing that is constant is that governments don't know how to do business. European government, Western government, other African governments, they are not directly involved in business. That's why their countries are developed, because government is not the highest employer. It is only in Liberia, in the whole world, where government is the highest employer. That's why everybody will kill to get government job. Everybody will kill to become representative. Everybody will kill to become senator, because that's the only means of employment. The private sector is dead. So everybody is fighting. There are people that are in government that don't belong there at all. But everybody is flocking there because it's the only source of employment. And then we're asking ourselves, why are we not developing? Because we have refused to develop a private sector. And we can develop private sector by privatizing. When you privatize these things, if you privatize the port, even the Freeport should be privatized. The airport, RIA should be privatized. It doesn't mean you're giving out control. You give this thing to responsible company, even MCSS schools. And I'm going to write a bill to go. They should give me MCSS schools, and I can run MCSS school efficiently and effectively, and government can benefit and the country can benefit from that. When we privatize, we give these things to companies. When I say privatize, it doesn't mean you're giving control outside. Mr. Sheriff here can decide, hey, I have a company. You privatize and I'm taking over the port of Buchanan. He can take over it. Doesn't mean it's foreigners. Liberians can still own the right to those companies, and they can run it efficiently. The only thing when you privatize, then you have to regulate to make sure those companies running those ports are running it to the standard that the government wants, because the privatization will bring in production, it will bring in quality, and it will create jobs, which the government have not been able to do because of corruption. When this money comes, these guys put in have big people. If a private company come in, they're looking at resume to employ the right people. A government now said they're employing people for the port of Greenville, they're going to employ their friends. They're going to employ their families. That's why we're not doing anything optimally. That's why privatization helps every country around the world. We need to do a government around the world don't do business. It's only in Liberia government is into everything. Even here in America, government's not doing everything. They outsource. Government regulate, but they outsource the jobs to private companies, and then they insist on the standard by which these private companies should operate. Even the government schools in Liberia should be privatized, and citizens who understand education and can employ the right people and hold teachers to the right standard, and our school system will pick up privatization.
What's about foreigners, like a Turkish company privatizing, taking over the port of Greenville?
Oh yeah, that's where the standard will be. That's why we got a PPP, what the company that run you people should submit their bid. You should look at it. Let me tell you something. I went to Nigeria and I spoke with a friend. If those of you can remember, there was a company called Gambia Bird running in Liberia, from Liberia, Ghana, and they wanted to go to Nigeria. They couldn't get to Nigeria. They fought. They couldn't get to Nigeria. And I went to Nigeria. I spoke to my friend who is a pilot. He was an ECMO pilot in Liberia. I said, why are you guys frustrating this company? He said, Gambia Bird is the fault. Nigeria, we have a law. Any company that comes in Nigeria must be ahead of it. So if they can find one Nigerian and make that Nigerian a chairman of Gambia Bird in Nigeria, they will give them the license to operate that Nigerian as a chairman. So it looks like Nigerian company. So if you privatize into a Turkish company, a Liberian should be ahead of that Turkish company. That's how you still control the company. But Liberia, when we're doing this, we just left foreigners like George Weah administration. They brought in one Arab company. The same day they came to Liberia, they signed paperwork for them and gave them the whole ground crew operation of RIA. The same day the company came with no money. No Liberian was in charge of it. That's where we get it wrong. Liberia,
Thank you. I want to bring in callers now. We have callers waiting in the wings, and callers 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403#. Let's take our caller. I want us to close down in the next 10 minutes. The first is Kalabo Gonglo. Mr. Gonglo, you're live. Kalabo, are you there?
Good show.
Thank you.
I'm listening to you guys. This is Kalabo Gonglo. There are a few things I want to say here. One, we can now work our way out of inefficiency in public service just by, embracing neoliberal thinking, neoliberal economic thinking. Let's just give our country, our public sector, our resources to Western capital. We can do that because, the foundation of government system around the world also reflect both tradition and culture. In Western capital, in Western culture, their system is based on individualism. In Africa, our system is based on collectivism. We are a traditional society that we embrace and value each other. So if we want to do this, to say, because our public sectors are managed inefficiently, we must just privatize. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I disagree with it with Alan Johnson's early, and I disagree with it now. Because if you want to do that, you want to even privatize the executive mansion. Because the executive mansion is one of the most inefficient managed businesses in public sector. Then let's even privatize the capital building, the legislature. Because that is a foundational argument that the public sectors are not managed efficiently, which is true. They are not managed efficiently because there is lack of leadership in the executive mansion. There is lack of leadership in the legislature. So what we should focus on is we need to focus on educating the people to put the right people in public service. China China is a control and command economy. Chinese government is managing our economy effectively and competing with Western with capitalists. They have a mixed model in China, and they are doing that. We can do the same in Africa. We have people with innovation and integrity managing our public service. But we cannot simply. Look, let me end on this. You see, in Liberia today, I was in Liberia when this whole thing of decentralization of government started. Okay, let's decentralize the government. Let's do this. Great ideas. But what we're doing essentially, and I argue with Dr. Soro at that time in one of the workshops, we're decentralizing inefficiency because the central government is not managed efficiently. So we say, okay, let's go out and just devolve power to the local. But we're just spreading corruption and inefficiency. That's what we're doing. And that's why it's not even working up to this point.
I like your point, and I like your point, because the guy in Monrovia is doing it bad. So let me bring in the next caller. Let me not do a commentary now. James Colley, you're live.
Thank you so much for allowing me in. Honorable panelists, you guys are great. I listened to the conversation, I would say. It's been very rewarding. But honestly, what I want to say here is that if I would ask a question, what actually in Liberia has ever been privatized and what?
The cell phone.
Hello?
I said cell phone.
Look, Dennis was talking about concession and trying to make a, distinction between concession and privatization. It was very difficult to draw the line. If we look around in Liberia, we see Bombing Hill is now Bombing Holes. Fastoon is 1 million acre of land. We have not gotten anything for it. And so what really works? So, okay, instead of answering that question, let me say this. Why can't we in Liberia find out what is privatizable and what is not privatizable? Let's find something in Liberia and say, this is not privatizable. This is privatizable. The second thing I want to say here is that why is that not part of the development of a county? You have a port in Buchanan. Why is the government getting privatization in Buchanan when it's a county? Why can't they make that as part of a development package? This is why all of Liberia is just bush, no roads, and even Monrovia. If you have that kind of opportunity in Greenville, why can't you, maybe Dennis, when you're superintendent, put a package together, a development package for Sano, and say now, as part of this development package, the port would be very important to include that into the development package. Why is it that we just come out and say the government should do something, and these counties are just going to have strangers because they are not native to Sano County, who are Liberians, and just plow in there and do whatever they can because we're going to get, as Brother Carter said, 20%. We might not even get the 20%. What do we actually know how to manage Liberia? So, in my view, let's find some way of finding a solution for Liberia and doing a case study. Ask people to say, look, itemize. What can we privatize? You cannot take your port. What European country you see doing that? You'll be easily invaded.
The United States.
United States port is privatized?
Yes, public-private management.
All right.
Okay, so I want to see how it's laid out. Because the United States, first of all, have people who are very mechanized, who are very capable, who are very educated, who are expert in their fields. I don't see that in Liberia. You have Freeport that is struggling right now. You have somebody who collected revenue. We don't even know how much was collected, and he donated to the government.
He reported. But thank you, James. Let me bring on the last caller. let me bring. I mean, I like his point. He said, "Well, look at the other areas, see what they've done."
Yeah, but why can't it be Liberian investors as well? What are we discounting ourselves for?
I don't know why when they say privatization, they only think about foreigner.
Exactly.
Privatization will be Liberians. You
Exactly.
also own it.
Exactly.
Which has never. Let me bring in our last caller here. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Alvin Porto. I live in Minnesota. It's my first time calling.
Welcome,
I
Alvin.
believe decentralization can work in Liberia. Let me tell you the reason why. It creates competition.
Mhm.
Once we go back to the Constitution and amend the Constitution and make Liberia a federal government,
What?
that is step one. Yes. Decentralize the government where it creates competition. For example, if we look at local county, most of your high-ranking educated folks in Liberia, 75%, 85% come from local.
That's not true.
If local it's just my assumption.
Mm-hmm.
If local can actually go through elections where you have governorship, right? And accept the president appointing superintendents and paramount chiefs from the executive mansion, if people go through election and choose who they want, the resources they have in LOFA, you prioritize it in a way that the LOFA they can manage their own resources, but they pay taxation to central government. When you see LOFA doing better off than Kidman, or Kidman doing better off, or Nima doing better off, the people will know exactly what they're doing in those different counties based on how they're managing their resources, if they're getting better healthcare, better school, better roads, and better access to their resources. If they're not doing too well, people will go through the election and fire them. The president should be making all the appointments from the executive mansion. The only issue we have when you decentralize government is human resources. Because that means Liberians will have to go home who have the skills and expertise to be able to contribute in those different counties of where you come from. That will help the country to get better. Create competition, don't make all the appointments. Decentralized government, go through election and start making government, the president of Liberia making local government appointments. That is my suggestion. I mean, you're wrong, but this is what I think we should be going to.
And we respect your opinion. Thank you so much, Alvin, for calling, especially being your first time. Please call again.
Good point.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. This time, and based on all the, maybe the first thing we can try is, why don't we collect signatures to the president so he can appoint me as sign superintendent, and then we can start from somewhere. Gentlemen,
you got my vote. You got my vote.
We got to collect the signatures and compel the president the same way Funati is supposed to compel the other people to come for meeting. So we compel the president to appoint me. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We will draw down the curtains. I want just a sentence from each of you to close. We are way over time. Let me start with you, Mr. Salib, with your one sentence to close.
One sentence.
One sentence. A serious government, the first thing they want to do, you want to work on your national security, you want to work on education, you want to work on healthcare. So attract investors and to give your people longevity. And let us build local capacity, local content.
Thank you. Gabriel, you're closing.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. As I said earlier, in terms of what is happening with the speakership, I think it is a test on our democracy, and that test needs to happen. The only thing that I hope we get out of it is to be able to learn from it and revise the constitution. That way we can continue to build and strengthen our democracy. On the issue of the port, I think I am strongly in favor of decentralizing and privatizing the port.
Don't say privatizing, say public partnership.
Public-private partnership to create a competition in our shipping, to open our economy up to create a competition within our economy, because we absolutely need it. And it will decentralize by default the country as it is, where everybody's clustered in Monrovia, to get them away from that. But I yield on that. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Victor.
Yeah.
Hey, great show again, guys. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think the situation at the Capitol building, it is difficult to do the right thing. I think it is easy to always find a way out, which usually may not be the right way. I think we need to find a way to deal with the situation without normalizing illegal extrajudicial activities. I think care should really be taken with this situation at the Capitol building and let it be handled properly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Dukley.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being part of the show tonight. And I want to thank you, Dennis, for the opportunity. I think our democracy is being put to test. I hope we can right the wrongs and be able to govern ourselves the way we should. And regarding the ports, I think we need to do things different than the way we are doing it now. I hope somebody is listening somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharif.
Yeah, so quickly, the government should be in the business of creating millionaire Liberians, all across the country. So I will hope that one of these days a government will come in and say, during my term of 6 years, I'm going to create 200 millionaires. And how do you do that? You do that with opening up these industries, opening them up so that these Liberians can invest into it, encourage them, give them loans, help them, give them the pathways. So when people hear about privatization, they always think about, oh yeah, they're going to take our land. They're going to take our land. You're not doing anything anyway. So allow people, who will go back to do something and let the government create these millionaires in the private sector. Liberians, not foreigners, but Liberians. It's not happening because we're all afraid of, as Dennis would say, our sovereignty and all these different things. And meanwhile, 200 years later, we're still sitting here talking about sovereignty.
Mr. Sharif, not because you can take care of children now, so you just give them out for adoption.
But here's the thing, Dennis. Here's the thing. You got to
send them to stay with their uncles.
You got to do something different. Or 200 years
have them in the first place.
Right. They say, but I'm not able to send them to school anyway, so let me take it.
But what is your solution 200 years later?
These are all
We just got to do better. We just got to do better.
And we're not doing better.
We can work our way out of inefficiency by giving it to other people.
Dennis.
Liberians are not other people, Dennis.
No, I'm talking about other company.
But Dennis,
they can privatize.
Dennis, I just wanted to make a quick reference to something Brother Salim said earlier.
We'll do that in the back room.
Okay. Well, he wasn't listening to hear it, Dennis.
No. Let's close.
It just about 30 seconds.
Okay.
He talks about where this company wanted to come to Nigeria, and Nigeria insisted that Nigeria must head it. From my experience, I lived in Egypt for 10 years. Every company that came to Egypt, including American University of Cairo, only the head is an American. The senior management are all Egyptian. This is because the Egyptians require in their rules that besides the head, the senior management has to be Egyptian. And for that reason, there's a local content that help develop the local capacity in our country. That's one of the things we need to consider in our country.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, gentlemen, for tonight. I want to thank our viewers. Always follow us, focus on Liberia. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we're going to have the business show. Gabriel,
Yes.
We'll have the business show. We'll talk about the budget and also the MCC scorecard in depth. Join us and let's do it. On that note, let's close with our song.
Good night, family.
All Liberians.
Thank you, everyone.
We are Liberians.